Hey y'all, it's Dawn, and I'm so glad you're back. I've got another fun, budget-friendly DIY video for you today. To create the little bunny for my tiara tray, I used a Dollar Tree foam dice, 3 white balloons, and some burlap ribbon. I actually purchased the cut file for this project from Farmhouse. I cut the neck off of the balloons and stretched them over the dice. All I can say is be careful when you do this. I scared my poor princess crazy paws. She was sitting next to me in her princess chair and the dice slipped and flew in her direction. She stayed under my bed for about an hour. Next, I took the vinyl and applied it to the balloon. To make the ears, I used some burlap ribbon and cut it in the shape of bunny ears. For the pink part of the ears, I used a piece of pink paper and glued it to the burlap. You could use pink felt, I just didn't have any on hand. I had trouble getting the ears glued to the dice, so I used a small crafter stick, glued the ear to it, and then glued it to the back of the bunny head. As you can see, I had a floral crown to begin with. I just didn't like the crown, so I removed it with my fingernails and decided to make a spring hat for my bunny. I used more of the burlap ribbon I had used for the ears. I wrapped it around the bunny head and glued it. I pulled a leaf off of some flowers, folded it over, and glued it to the front of the burlap hat. I then used a pink flower from this ribbon and glued it on top of the leaf. And now I have the cutest tiara tray bunny face ever. Today I'll be turning this Dollar General sign into a cute spring and Easter tiara tray sign. I used a pair of pliers and removed the metal piece from the front. I wanted to remove the paper from the picture so I could paint it. I used rubbing alcohol and a scraper and started removing the paper from the picture. It took some work, but I eventually got all the paper and glue residue off. And then used my hot air gun to dry it. I decided to paint the picture with brown acrylic paint first, and then I used white chalk paint. I'm running low on white chalk paint, so I poured some onto the picture and painted it. At first, I thought the sign was actually wood, but it was actually hard-pressed cardboard. So, the alcohol made some of the edges of the picture swell up. I decided to use tumbling tower blocks to create a frame around the edge so it would cover up the swelling. I used this Americana wax to stain the blocks. I just love this wax. It's a light color and perfect for most of my projects. I then hot glued the blocks onto the picture. I created this cute cut file using Inkscape. I layered the different pieces onto the transfer paper and then applied it to the sign. I then applied gloss Mod Podge to the entire picture frame. And just look at how stinking cute this little tier tray sign turned out. I painted this piece of scrap wood with plaster chalk paint. I sized and cut free cut file from Craft House. I used transfer paper and aligned the bunnies on it. And then placed them onto the wood. I then used 3 Dollar Tree pom-poms and glued them to the bunnies' butts. The pom-poms seemed a little big to me, so I trimmed them down. I love how the pom-poms add some dimension to the sign. These bunnies are so adorable. I used these 2 little Dollar Tree buckets that I found in the wedding section to make a couple of tier tray topiaries. I used black and different shades of gray and brown to make a metal looking color for the buckets. I wanted them to look rustic and old. I squeezed each of the colors onto my wax paper side by side. Sorry, I didn't realize this shot was out of frame. I used a sponge and dipped it into the colors on my wax paper and then dabbed some of the excess off. And then started dabbing the paint onto the buckets until I was happy with the way they looked. And this actually turned out a little messier than I was expecting. My hands were covered in paint. So if you want to keep your hands clean, I would recommend using some gloves. Next, I took 2 skewers and painted them with Americana antiquing wax. I've used this wax on several projects now, and I really like it. I like it better than I do the Waverly antiquing wax. It's a little bit lighter, and I like that about it. I used some dark green paint and painted 2 small styrofoam balls using a stencil brush so I could get into the holes of the styrofoam. I thought I had some loose moss in my stash, but apparently I've used it all up. So I used this sheet moss and removed it from the sheet. It was a rather messy project. I put some glue on the styrofoam ball and then rolled it around in the loose moss. I continued doing this until the styrofoam was completely covered. I would recommend, after you have covered your ball, to go ahead and add a layer of Mod Podge to help hold all the moss onto the styrofoam. I cut a third styrofoam ball in half and put it in the bottom of each of the buckets. I placed the skewer into the styrofoam and then removed it and added hot glue to the hole and then replaced the skewer. I used Spanish moss to fill in the bottom of the topiaries and trimmed everything up. And just look at how cute these little mini tiered tray topiaries turned out. I just love them. For the next bucket, I left it white and added some twine to the bottom up to the first line on the bucket. I cut another styrofoam ball in half and placed it in the bottom of the bucket like before. I cut the blooms off of these 2 floral picks from Dollar Tree and inserted them into the styrofoam ball. I finished the bucket off with some Spanish moss and I trimmed it. And just look at how sweet it turned out. Today I'm making this adorable fabric bunny using a buffalo print bandana I got for 99 cents from Hobby Lobby. I had this little bunny cutout that I used as a template. With a black Sharpie, I traced the bunny on the back of the fabric. I actually folded the bandana in half before tracing so I would have 2 bunnies cut just the same. After tracing it, I cut the bunny on the lines that I had traced. After I cut the bunny, I have 2 just the same size. I then put the bunnies together and used pins to hold them in place. And guys, I'm sorry, but for whatever reason, I didn't get the part where I was sewing the bunny with it turned inside out. So I will show you the stitch using this white felt and black string. I sewed the bunny from one foot all the way around to the other foot, leaving the space at the bottom open so I could apply the stuffing. I then started adding the stuffing and used a dowel to get the stuffing up into the ears. After I added the stuffing, I went back around the outside of the bunny to close up any holes. I wanted the bunny to look handmade and rustic. I continued stitching the entire bunny and closed the hole at the bottom. I decided the bunny needed some eyes. I found these 2 buttons in my stash and sewed them onto the bunny, trying to make sure they were as centered and even as possible. The last thing I did was add a little tail using a Dollar Tree white pom-pom and added a piece of twine around his neck. And look at him. He is so adorable and looks amazing on my spring tiered tray. I got this little canvas and stand at Dollar General. I knew it would look amazing on a tiered tray. It was the perfect size. I like the natural wood color of the stand, so all I had to do was paint the tiny canvas, and I used plaster chalk paint. It did take 2 coats to cover the image that was already on the canvas. While the canvas dried, I found this free cut file from Farmhouse. I sized the cut file to fit on the canvas and then cut it using my Cricut. Removed it from the transfer tape and applied it to the dried canvas. I added a small yellow buffalo check bow to the corner of the canvas. And it was that simple to create this adorable easel sign. I used a Dollar Tree succulent pot and placed a piece of floral foam in the bottom. I cut a piece of Dollar Tree white felt down and used a very small styrofoam ball. I wrapped the felt around the styrofoam ball to create the bunny's butt and used a rubber band to secure the felt to the ball. For the bunny's tail, I used a white Dollar Tree pom-pom and glued it onto the felt. I folded a piece of felt in half and cut out some bunny ears. I actually cut out 4 ears and glued 2 of them together to make the ear a little stronger, and glued them onto the styrofoam ball. I trimmed down some of the felt at the end of the ball and then glued it into the pot. He needed some feet, so I used another piece of felt and cut feet out and used a marker to draw the pads of the feet. I then glued the bunny feet onto the bunny. For the carrots, I used some floral wire and wood beads. I cut the wire down to size and used 3 6mm beads and 2 4mm beads to create each carrot. I left a portion of the wire sticking out at the bottom of the carrot so I could push it into the floral foam. I added a dab of hot glue to keep the beads in place. I then added another dab of glue at the top of each carrot. I used some orange chalk paint and painted the carrots. I then used some of the greenery from this large carrot I had in my stash. I cut a small portion of it off and then glued it to the top of each of the carrots. I made a total of 3 carrots for this pot. I created the words for my sign in Design Space and used this little Dollar Tree chalkboard sign. And look at how stinking cute this little bunny butt pot turned out. I picked up this little bucket on a recent trip to Goodwill. I thought it was cute and that it would make a cute little decor piece for this spring. And the best part was the price was $1.99. You can't beat that. I didn't like the eggs on the front and wanted to freshen up the bucket a little. I used some 220 sanding paper to remove as much of the eggs as I could. I was actually hoping it would remove all the paint. If it would have, I probably would have just left the bucket like it was without the eggs on it. Once I was finished sanding, I wiped the bucket down to remove all the sand dust before painting. The paint I used was Waverly Plaster. I painted the entire bucket, including the metal around the top and the bottom of the bucket. I also painted some of the inside of the bucket to just give it all a uniform look. I left the handle as is because I love the way it looked. After it dried, I used some sandpaper again to roughen it up a bit and remove as much paint as I could from the metal on the top and bottom. This is when I realized I should have left the metal alone and not painted it. Oh well, lesson learned. Once I finished sanding, I used another wet wipe to wipe down the bucket to remove all the sand dust. I found this cute cut file for free on Design Bundles. I did a little editing to the file in Design Space and cut it out on black matte vinyl. I applied the vinyl to transfer tape and then applied it to my bucket. I think this little bucket is perfect for spring and Easter. First, I used some of this Dollar Tree Easter basket grass and added it to the bucket to give something for my carrots to sit in. I used several carrots I got from a craft haul I got off Marketplace and a few carrots from Dollar Tree. I sporadically placed them in the bucket until I liked the way they look. And I think the bucket of carrots turned out pretty cute. Please take a second to like this video and leave me a comment. This really helps my channel to grow so others just like yourself can find me. If you just found me, I hope you will join our little family by hitting the subscribe button. If you are already part of the family, thank you so much for your love and support. Y'all are the absolute best. Check out my new Amazon store for craft supply and farmhouse home decor recommendations. All the products I use from Amazon in my videos can be found there. Until next time, happy crafting!